Hi everyone, this is Maverick Pa, the chemistry guru. Now in this video, we want to discuss the suggested solution for 2021 A-Levels H2 Chemistry Paper 1 Question 8. So let's take a look at Question 8. Which description of Dalton's law is correct? So we have four options. Option A, equal volumes of gases at the same temperature and pressure contain equal numbers of molecules. Option B, partial pressure of a gas in a mixture is given by the product of its mole fraction and the total pressure. Option C, the partial pressure of a gas in a mixture is given by the product of its percent by mass and total pressure. Option D, the total pressure of a mixture of gases is equal to the sum of the partial pressures of those gases. So obviously this topic tested in this question will be under gaseous state, and essentially we just need to be familiar with Dalton's law, the definition of Dalton's law, and we consider which is the best answer. I think let us just run through each of these options part by part, and we see whether is this Dalton's law and whether is this reasonable or not reasonable. So involving option A, equal volumes of gases at the same temperature and pressure contain equal numbers of molecules. Now actually there's such a law, but unfortunately this is not Dalton's law, this is Avogadro's law. So Avogadro's law basically says that if the temperature and pressure is constant, then equal volumes of gases will contain equal numbers of molecules, or the volume of a gas is directly proportionate to the number of moles of gas when temperature and pressure is constant. So this is actually a correct concept. It is just that it is not Dalton's law, so therefore option A will not be the correct answer. Next, let us look at option B. Now option B, the partial pressure of a gas in a mixture is given by the product of its mole fraction and the total pressure. Now this is actually related to Dalton's law. It says that the partial pressure of a gas will just be the mole fraction. The mole fraction is given by the number of mole of that gas divided by the total number of mole multiplied by the total pressure. We actually use this formula for calculation. If I have a mixture of gases, then if I know the number of moles of the gases inside this mixture, then given the total pressure, I can actually calculate the partial pressure for each of these gases. So actually this formula is correct, and this describes Dalton's law. And let us leave this option open. Then later we see whether we have a better explanation, and again we just have to choose the best answer. So B is possible. Anyway, B is correct and it is based on Dalton's law, so it's one of the possible answers here. Next, let us look at option C. Now option C, partial pressure of a gas in a mixture is given by the product of its percent by mass and total pressure. Now you notice this formula involving the partial pressure is given by the product of its percent by mass. That means the mass of your gas divided by the total mass of the species. Convert this to percentage and multiply this by the total pressure. You notice there's no such formula that we learned involving gaseous state. So therefore option C is totally wrong. Actually, C is just a variation of B. Of course, this is the wrong variation. B is following Dalton's law. The partial pressure of a gas is the mole fraction. That means number of mole of the gas divided by the total number of mole multiplied by the total pressure. So C is like a variation of it, but it is in terms of mass ratio rather than mole ratio. So C is definitely wrong. And there's no such equation or there's no such law quantifying option C. So C is definitely wrong. Finally, let's look at option D. Option D, the total pressure of a mixture of gases is equal to the sum of the partial pressures of all those gases. So if let's say I have a few gases, gas A, gas B, gas C, and so on, the total pressure of this mixture of gases will just be the partial pressure of A plus the partial pressure of B plus the partial pressure of C, and so on. Now again, this is Dalton's law, and Dalton's law actually states that the total pressure of a mixture of a gas will just be the sum of all the partial pressures of all these gases. So now, option D is also a possible answer, which is a little bit confusing for some of us. You notice option D is Dalton's law, and option B is also Dalton's law. So now what we have to do is we have to choose between option B and option D, and we see which is a better answer. So this can be a little bit confusing because usually when we do questions, if let's say the question asks us to define a certain law or a certain definition, then usually 1 will be the correct answer, the rest of them will be wrong. But for this question, what is a little bit unusual is actually B and D, both of them describes Dalton's law. What we have to do is we just have to choose the best answer. Now, if I consider option B is a little bit more closely related to application. It is like the consequence of Dalton's law. Actually, if we look up the definition involving Dalton's law states that the total pressure of the mixture of gas is equal to the sum of the partial pressure of those gases. So basically D, option D, is the definition of Dalton's law, or what Dalton's law states. So D is a little bit more fundamental. It is the definition of Dalton's law, and this option B, where we talk about this formula, partial pressure is equal to mole fraction multiplied by total pressure, is actually deduced or derived from this definition, and therefore it is application. So if I compare option D versus option B, option D seems to be a better answer because it is more fundamental. It is based on the definition of Dalton's law. Option B is a derivation. It is like an application of Dalton's law. So if we have to choose between B and D, personally, I think that option D will have to be the better answer. So again, it's a little bit unusual because both of them are describing Dalton's law, but option B is focusing on application. Option D is a little bit more fundamental, focusing on the definition. So option D will be a better answer for this question. Alright, so that was the discussion involving this question. If you have learned something useful from this video, please give me the thumbs up, like this video, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more weekly video lessons. That's all for now. I'll see you next week.